Hi, um, good evening. Uh, this video is regarding the debate about multinational corporations should practice moral relativism. In reply to my previous video, where I was supporting the need for multi corporations to adhere to moral relativism, there were some opposition points which were challenged to my debate video. So this video is more of a rebuttal video or a justification of the points where moral relativism fails the needs of multinational corporations in today's society. I'll address the issues which were pointed out for my video. Importantly, first to consider, it is very important to understand while moral practices of societies may differ, the fundamental moral principles underlying these practices do not. These universal norms must be upheld. Although applying moral relativism may sometimes be necessary for businesses to thrive, yet it is very important that businesses face the reality of moral absolutes and reject relativism that creeps to undermine them. Let me give an example, a classic example of American Civil War. Uh, Civil War actually is a conflict about slavery. Slavery, we all know, is a human race subjugation which has lasted for centuries. But why is slavery an issue for multinational corporations? If we go back to the context of 1860s, one of the arguments which the Confederates or Southern societies were bringing onto the table was they actually own the people who work for them, whereas the nationalists or the northern industrialists actually they rent the people. They actually have the people on wages. They were saying, for example, I, as a owner of a car, I own the car, I maintain the car, I take care of the car. Similarly, the southern agriculture-based industrialists were mentioning that they actually own the people. They also take care of the people and their needs and their family needs. In turn, they were actually justifying the slavery, which is so important to their businesses. At the same time, they were also making an accusation towards northern industrialists, saying that wage-based jobs are more demeaning than slavery because they are actually renting the people instead of owning the people. Now, if we look at this argument, there is some kind of merit at the argument itself because owning the things is definitely better than renting the things. But when you apply this from a moral standpoint to humans, this definitely is not right. Considering the moral relativism for northern agricultural based industries or industrialists, saying that they own the people and they can do whatever they want and they can take care of the people's needs, and accusing opponents saying that they are not taking care of the people is not a right argument. Definitely, it's not a right argument, no matter what. Justifying slavery, even with the merit arguments like this, doesn't going to withstand. So there is a need for multinational corporations in today's world not to get into the context of local governments or local societies or local practices where it actually demerits the human morals itself, the universal morals which are very evident and which are very transparent should never be compromised by any of the multinational corporation, and that should be actually the the moral ethics or the principles which should guide the company policymakers to ensure that the policies or the moral guidelines or the moral relativism practices which MNCs or the multinational corporations practice should always give a verification or a justification about why a moral relativism related practice has been implemented in a particular geographical region or a particular instance or a particular circumstance. So we have seen how moral relativism has impacted a couple of American banks in my video. But having said that, there are always universal principles which need to be adhered, and while we say there is no right or wrong approach, but most of the times corporations in a way prohibit themselves from taking a stand for honesty in those cases. But we all know that being honest and transparent towards the transactions and also towards the activities multinational corporations perform will always be beneficial to the global brand of that particular multinational corporation. Not only that, multinational corporations start to develop dependencies on systematic corruptions if they indulge in this kind of moral relativism based activities, which actually debrand or lower the brand of them. But they also get the beneficiaries into the bribery and other practices which are actually not an encouraging sign for an organization or a multinational corporation. Most of the times, because of these practices, the stockholders are implicitly deceived, which is not very healthy for a multinational corporation. To work around this kind of situation, multinational corporations must establish an ethical guideline, document, or ethical principles in the host country. They also should follow utilitarian principle. This is actually a very important point with respect to moral relativism because utilitarian principle states that they should do more good to more people and to more local people. So, which means that that company should do more good than harm to the host country. Most of the times, yes. Yeah, there are situations where there are exceptions, but sorry. Utilitarian principle is quite widely acceptable for policy making decisions in most of the MNCs. So it's definitely one of the valid guidelines to be considered. MNCs use, when I say MNCs, multinational corporations use the resources of the host country. They should also improve the interest of its stakeholders. Also, they should never ignore the rights of the people or the host country, and also the local communities while they apply moral relativism for their growth. That's a brief summary about my response for exceptions for moral relativism and when we should not actually go by moral relativism as a rule or as a golden rule, and there are always exceptions. And utilitarian principles are actually a way, roadmap, or help us define where moral relativism fails for an organization. Thank you.